This is the CBS Evening News with Dan Rather and Connie Chung.
Good evening. Dan and Connie are both off tonight. I'm Paula Zahn. After months of war and tribal massacres, rebel forces in Rwanda are claiming victory and calling on their fleeing enemies to come home. But so far, the tide of refugees is still streaming out of Rwanda in record numbers. Correspondent Jeremy Thompson is on the scene for CBS News. We need to warn you, the pictures in his report are gruesome and graphic.
The only things moving on the runway at Goma were refugees. All relief flights had been suspended after the latest outbreak of hostilities, and the suffering was more than mere hunger. Near the border post where the Rwandans thought they had crossed into safety, a scene of utter carnage. A mortar fired from Rwanda had exploded amongst the fleeing masses, a deadly end to their long walk to freedom. French army medics searched for any signs of life. Amazingly, some had survived, buried amongst the corpses. A baby, just a few weeks old, found alive beside her dead mother. Nearby, Rwandans scavenged amongst the bodies of fellow refugees, trampled to death in their panic-stricken stampede after the mortar had landed. Hungry and desperate, refugees began laying waste to Goma, hacking down trees for firewood to cook their meager supplies. A seething multitude now packed the town. Over 1 million people had fled into Zaire.
There's all these people, they're obviously needing assistance, and they've had it all. They've had to walk for hundreds of kilometers, they crossed into Zaire trying to get safety, and even here they cannot find peace.
Though relief flights may resume tomorrow, aid agencies said they had barely 10% of the food and water needed to keep the refugees alive. Defeated government soldiers swarmed into Zaire as the Patriotic Front claimed control over the whole of Rwanda. The victors now wanted the men who carried out the massacres to be handed over and tried for war crimes. Meanwhile, the innocent continued to suffer. Over 300 more orphans were found wandering alone in Goma today. They were collected and taken to a children's home, though there was little hope of finding their families. While this tide of people trudge on by day and night, it's now reported that another 1.5 million refugees are expected to cross into Zaire south of here at Bukavu, more than doubling the scale of this human catastrophe. Jeremy Thompson, Sky News for CBS News, Goma, Zaire.
The slaughter in Rwanda is only the latest chapter in an age-old tribal conflict. It is a power struggle between the minority Tutsis, who ruled the land for centuries, and the majority Hutus. As correspondent Mark Phillips reports, the latest chapter has been the bloodiest of all.
When the scenes of horror from Rwanda began to literally pile up on the world's TV screens, the reaction was one of shock and surprise. It shouldn't have been. The outside world may not have directly caused the Rwandan catastrophe, but it did contribute to it, and it certainly had evidence that it was coming. International relief agencies had been warning for years about the training of political and ethnic murder squads. And the people who wrote those reports have their theories on why no one cared.
People on the outside have a very fatalistic approach to conflict in Africa. They tend to believe that there's been no change on the African continent and that the kind of killing that's going on now has always gone on and will always go on, so why bother?
The current round of killing and displacement is just that, the current round. In a political and economic power struggle that goes back decades, in an ethnic conflict that goes back centuries. And when the now deposed government launched a campaign against its own people, it had help.
The governments around the world helped the Rwandese government to perpetuate human rights violations by supplying arms, by continuing to give aid to the country, which was used to perpetuate the war and the human rights violations.
And the cynical fact is the Rwandese picked the wrong time to start killing each other again. A time when Western governments, after the experience of Somalia and Bosnia, had grown tired of trying to solve other people's problems, especially in places in which they had no economic or strategic interest.
It's a poor country. It's unimportant. to most of the world. There are no economic interests there. There are no political interests there. There's no oil. There's no money to be made.
If the Rwandese were fleeing to Florida instead of Zaire, the reaction might be different. But this horror, however terrible, is in a little place few had ever heard of and far away. Mark Phillips, CBS News, London.
President Clinton today authorized another $19 million in aid for the refugees from Rwanda. The money will pay for food, medicine, and military airlifts. U.S. aircraft have already flown 100 relief missions to the area. In Buenos Aires, Argentina tonight, authorities there are investigating a deadly explosion which destroyed the offices of 2 Jewish organizations. At least 17 people were killed and more than 100 were injured. No one has claimed responsibility. Israeli officials say they believe it was the work of Islamic militants who oppose peace in the Middle East. 2 years ago, a bomb destroyed the Israeli embassy in Buenos Aires, killing 30 people. Back in this country tonight, lawyers for O.J. Simpson are apparently putting out the word about what their defense strategy might be. And it might be that Simpson was framed for the murders of his former wife Nicole and Ronald Goldman, framed by a Los Angeles police detective. No one has offered any evidence to support such a suggestion, but as Sandra Hughes reports, the plan appears to be to attack the detective's character.
Did you ever determine...
It was a key piece of prosecution evidence at Simpson's preliminary hearing, a bloody glove found behind the guest quarters at Simpson's estate, allegedly the mate of another bloody glove found at the murder scene. Los Angeles homicide detective Mark Furman testified.
When I found the glove and actually realized that this glove was very close in description and color to the glove at the crime scene, my heart started pounding, and I realized what I had probably found.
Now published reports say that the Simpson team is leaking an allegation about Detective Furman himself, that perhaps he planted the glove on Simpson's estate, that he's a rogue cop and a racist. Former federal prosecutor Jeffrey Toobin writes for The New Yorker.
The defense has evidence that might lead them to believe that Detective Furman was capable of framing a black man for the murder of 2 white people.
The reports point to a lawsuit Furman filed in 1983 suing L.A. for psychiatric disability. CBS News has obtained the documents. Furman is quoted as saying he enjoyed the Marines until, quote, these Mexicans and niggers would tell me they weren't going to do something. At the LAPD, he said he disliked working with gangs and, quote, the low-class people. Furman's suit was denied, and for the last decade, his record is reportedly clean. Today, neither the LAPD nor Furman is talking, but he did comment to The New Yorker.
And he denied this 100%. I asked him if he planted the glove, and he said that's a ridiculous question.
Race hasn't come up in court in this case yet, but court observers say that if the defense plays the race card here in Los Angeles, it could reopen wounds that still haven't healed. Sandra Hughes, CBS News, Los Angeles.
Still ahead on the CBS Evening News, President Clinton turns insurance salesman again. This time, Hispanic Americans are his target. An eye on America. Tonight, the youngest victims of crime and a plea for help that came too late. The army-backed government of Haiti said today it has launched diplomatic moves to try to head off a U.S. invasion. A spokesman said he hoped this would be a decisive week. That hope is apparently shared by President Clinton and his aides, who say they don't want to use force, but it could come to that. Correspondent Bob Simon is in Haiti.
Congressman Bill Richardson came to Haiti today to give the generals what sources described as their best offer and their last offer. Richardson is here at the invitation of General Cedras. He's the first American to meet with the junta since March. Richardson says he did not come as an emissary of the administration, but sources say he'll try to convince the generals that if they want to get out of Haiti alive and without handcuffs, they'd better leave now. President Aristide was putting on the pressure from Washington, taping another radio broadcast which will be transmitted from American aircraft overflying Haiti. The generals seem to be getting the message that the Americans are not bluffing, that an invasion is a real possibility. Poor Haitians are getting a message, too, that a boat will not take them very far. 451 were repatriated by the U.S. Coast Guard today, home at last, the last place they wanted to be. Rumors are rife of unrest among Haiti's low-ranking officers that they're afraid the generals are cutting a deal and will leave them here alone to face the wrath of the people. Rumors that they're plotting a coup. The Richardson visit will certainly intensify those rumors. From the American point of view, a coup would be preferable to an invasion, cleaner, cheaper, and safer for U.S. soldiers, for the U.S. administration. Bob Simon, CBS News, Port-au-Prince.
Well, President Clinton barely even mentioned Haiti as he campaigned today among Hispanic American voters in Florida. White House correspondent Bill Plant reports what the president did try to talk about instead.
The flood of Haitian refugees and the possible U.S. invasion of Haiti are major political issues in South Florida. But you wouldn't have known that from President Clinton, who talked about Haiti only in response to a question as he was about to leave.
We haven't ruled out any option, and we made it clear that the people who are there usurping power are going to have to go.
There is little support for government action. A new CBS News New York Times poll shows that only a third of those questioned approve Mr. Clinton's handling of Haiti, almost half disapprove. Only 27% favored sending U.S. troops to restore democracy in Haiti. A group of U.S. religious leaders say they found just as much opposition to a U.S. invasion in Haiti. Instead, they urged a tightening of the embargo, especially along Haiti's border with the Dominican Republic.
There's not a need for an invasion if we simply put the embargo on as tightly as possible.
So in Miami, as a handful of Haitians demonstrated outside, Mr. Clinton ignored his foreign policy dilemma and stuck to his equally troubled domestic agenda, pushing the crime bill and health care.
Unless you cover everybody, if you try to fix their problem, the only thing you're going to do is raise everybody else's insurance and have more middle-class people losing their insurance.
Our poll shows that a vast majority of Americans wants health coverage for everyone, although more than half do say that they'd be happy if that meant 95% coverage. Mr. Clinton may decide on Wednesday, when he meets with House and Senate leaders, whether he's ready to make that compromise. Bill Plant, CBS News, Miami.
Leon Panetta officially took over today as President Clinton's chief of staff, and one of the first things he did was to follow up on a reality check report we aired on this broadcast last week. We told you how some cabinet secretaries and other high-ranking government officials employ security details at taxpayer expense. Today, Panetta ordered all cabinet members to tell him what kind of security they have and why they need it. Stay with us for more of the CBS Evening News, including fat and cholesterol in Mexican food. A consumer group sounds the alarm. A new study is out today from the same consumer group that found Chinese and Italian food and movie theater popcorn loaded with fat. Well, this time it's Mexican food, but fans of Mexican food say it's the researchers who are full of beans. Correspondent Bob Orr has the Mexican food fight.
Mexican restaurants serving up tacos, burritos, and nachos. Americans just love them.
Why not have something that tastes good?
Well, a nonprofit consumer group today served up its answer, labeling Mexican food as some of the worst when it comes to fat and calories.
What we found was pretty grim. Even the healthiest platter we looked at contains 2/3 of a day's worth of fat. Most platters saddle you with an entire day's worth of fat, saturated fat and sodium, and more than 1,000 calories.
Some Mexican food fans just can't believe it.
I would think that with all the beans and the vegetables and things that it's got to be pretty good for you.
But the study of 15 popular dishes from the country's biggest Mexican restaurant chains found almost nothing good for you. For example, a chile relleno platter has as much fat as 11 glazed donuts. A beef chimichanga platter, 10 donuts. Even a taco salad contains the fat found in 8 glazed donuts.
Like a taco salad with a...
Restaurant owners call the study wrong and reckless.
Mexican food, if it's prepared the right way, is one of the healthiest cuisines around.
Nutritionists say restaurants could offer additional healthy choices by turning off their deep fryers and switching to low-fat products.
To the extent that consumers demand it, restaurants will make changes in the things that they provide.
But some skeptics like their Mexican fare just the way it is.
I love it, and I don't think I could cut it out of my diet.
How much fat could be in a margarita?
Similar warnings have been sounded before about the fat content in Chinese and Italian foods. But people continue to eat what they want. New numbers from the Centers for Disease Control show more Americans than ever before are overweight. Bob Orr, CBS News, Washington.
The government is out with a new perspective on America's crime problem. According to the Justice Department, the most likely victims of violent crime are children. Nearly 1 out of every 4 violent crime victims is a child between the ages of 12 and 17. And many victims are even younger than that. In tonight's Eye on America, Bob McNamara reports on children living and dying with crime.
Summer in the housing projects of New Orleans.
Go, go!
A tough time and a troubled place to be a kid.
Dangerous. They shoot too much. Other people get shot. Little bitty children. Nobody can do nothing about it.
One boy's call for help has made headlines. This spring, 9-year-old James Darby wrote the president.
Dear Mr. Clinton, he said, I want you to stop the killing in the city. I think somebody might kill me.
Just 9 days later, James Darby was dead, the victim of a drive-by shooting.
James's message has gotten through to people in a way that other messages haven't gotten through.
Dr. Joy Osofsky designed the Violence Intervention Project to help children like James Darby learn to deal with violence in daily life.
How could that happen to a little child? You never really think something like that will happen.
In reality, it happens far too often. Children, in one way or another, lose their lives to violence. Most of them live in places like this, and most of the time, they are left to cope on their own.
Get away from it all in beautiful Cancun, Mexico.
Alana Jones, 9 years old, watches television to escape her worries.
Do you think you're a happy kid?
I think I'm a sad kid.
Her father's unsolved murder 10 months ago has made Alana afraid to leave the apartment.
What worries you when you go outside?
Somebody snatches me or kills me and stuff.
It is a common side effect in a country fighting an epidemic of violent crime. Many children not only lose people they love, they lose their freedom, their chance to grow up without fear.
They're being exposed to things before their time and having to deal with it and not having the resources to deal with it.
Torrin Sanders heads the city's Loss and Survival Team, a program helping kids cope with the grief and isolation of urban violence.
If that's not dealt with as children, they grow up to be teenagers and adults who are going to act out on those same violent messages and same violent things that they've seen.
What kind of a guy was he?
He was a nice person.
At age 11, Fresnel Robinson has been devastated by his older brother's murder a few months ago.
Fresnel cries a lot. Fresnel talks of hatred. When you take that one person's life, you rip the whole family apart.
Part of his mother's grief is recognizing that the killing has forever changed the lives of all her children.
They don't have time to grow up. They don't have time to even have a childhood. Killing one another. Killing one another.
They have written a rap about killing one another because it is what they know. In 2.5 years,
Who shot him down?
Tanisha and Takara Morris have lost their brother and their father to random murder.
Killing one another.
Gee, what do you think the world is coming to?
End.
The end? Why do you say that?
Because a lot of people getting killed this stuff. It'd be hard to grow up.
They are ordinary kids caught in a crime wave and coping as well as they can. But here, every sign of hope seems countered by another killing that destroys another childhood and creates another child, unable to go on, unable to go out, and afraid to grow up. In New Orleans, Bob McNamara for Eye on America.
A bad day for Newtonian physics out in space today. There is word that a second newt on board Space Shuttle Columbia has died. Researchers say this could mean that animals may have some unforeseen problems adapting to life in space. Well, the shuttle mission is being eclipsed tonight by the goings-on about 500 million miles farther out in space. It is the greatest show off Earth. The biggest chunk of comet so far has left a huge impression on the planet Jupiter and on astronomers right here on Earth. Correspondent Jacqueline Adams has that story.
Late this afternoon, astronomers showed off Hubble telescope images of Jupiter's newest black eye, the effects of a massive wallop from the largest, most powerful fragment yet of the comet Shoemaker-Levy 9. In this 18-minute sequence, fragment G sent a 1,200-mile-high fireball above Jupiter's horizon.
This is one big impact site.
Fragment G slammed into Jupiter with the force of a 6 million megaton bomb, hundreds of times more powerful than all of the nuclear weapons on Earth. Put another way, our Earth would fit inside these dark splotches, which the relatively puny fragments C, A, and E appear to have punched into Jupiter over the weekend.
As violent as these impacts have been, though, scientists stress they're not strong enough to ignite Jupiter or to create any after effects here. If fragment G were to hit Earth, however, it would blow out a crater the size of Rhode Island.
The material that's blown out of that crater would essentially blanket the Earth with a layer of fine debris that would just block sunlight.
But luckily, Jupiter is not Earth.
I feel sorry for Jupiter. It's really getting pummeled, but I think it's going to hang in there.
There is some good news for amateur astronomers. Experts say that 3 massive overlapping impacts starting on Wednesday could easily create a hole that will be visible on Earth, a hole as big as Jupiter's red spot. Jacqueline Adams, CBS News, New York.
And that is the CBS Evening News for tonight. Coming up tomorrow on CBS This Morning, we will get the very latest on the Rwandan tragedy and live reports from relief workers and officials on the scene. Until then, have a good night, everybody. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Experience CBS News.
This is CBS. Attention all stations concerned. There will be an update of the CBS Evening News.